Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Marina Poljak. I'm the event coordinator at the Windsor-Essex Regional Chamber of Commerce. I am off camera today for now. I'm having some technical difficulties, and being off camera seems to help my connectivity, so I apologize. We're going to let our attendees settle in. Any questions for today's guest speaker, Mr. Rocco Rossi, the President and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, or for our own President, Rakesh Naidu, please leave them in the chat section. We will be monitoring those questions and addressing them in the Q&A portion of today's webinar. As well, if you have any additional questions for our chamber or feedback, if you'd like to tell us what you'd like to see from these webinars, please leave us an email at our info@, and I'll leave that in the chat section. It's info@windsor-essex-chamber.org. Give it a couple of seconds.
Just popping into audio for a moment. I'm Sue Braden. I'm just here for technical support and wanted to let you know as attendees today that Zoom has let us know that there is a real strain on the system right now. Not a surprise, as many of us are turning to working from home. Virtually, it's definitely adding a stress to technical systems. So we just apologize in advance for any glitches, and we do anticipate there will be some. Hopefully not a lot, but if you do find it bumpy, just a good rule of thumb, turn off anything in your browser that you don't need to run during the webinar. And if you've got kids that are playing games or streaming Netflix, it might add to the stress of your personal connection. So just a heads up that those are things that might help. I'm going to pop out now, wishing you good luck.
Thank you, Sue, and we'll give it another couple of moments here. As well, we update our social media platforms daily. So if you'd like to see what we have coming up or any news from the Chamber, you can follow us. I've put up our Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram handles in the chat section. As well, I'll also let you know at this time before we get started, tomorrow's webinar will be featuring Allison Hawkins of Hawkins Accounting and Nancy Jamu-Taylor from McTagg Law, and that will be at 2:30 tomorrow. Registration is currently open on our website. Okay, we will get started at this point. So I will pass this on to our President and CEO, Rakesh Naidu.
Thank you, Marina. Very good afternoon to everyone that's online and here with us. Welcome back to the webinar series that the Chamber of Commerce has been offering since the last week. Hope all of you have had some downtime over the weekend. It is a challenging time for all of us, whether we are a business owner or whether we are employees or whether we are, senior citizens or whether we are students, whether we are those that are, international students. For everyone, this has been a challenging time. But I hope that the last 2 days over the weekend, you had some time to, disconnect and reflect on things that are important to us, important to you as an individual, to your family, and hope you were able to take some time and be with your family. And we also hope that everyone in your family is keeping well. And we're hoping that all of us are spreading the importance and the awareness of social distancing and doing our part to comply with the directives that has been given to us from the Windsor-Essex Health Unit, from the local administration, from what we're hearing from the federal government and the provincial government. Extremely important for us to do our part, and make sure that we're flattening the curve. As you would have heard, we've had 44 cases now in the Windsor-Essex area. It is climbing, but you know what? It is. I can say that we have managed it well so far. And we're hoping that we can keep it to the low numbers, so that our healthcare providers and the hospitals are able to manage the numbers, knowing very well that this number is likely going to go up. We can hopefully do our part, to ensure that number doesn't skyrocket, and our healthcare workers and hospitals, have the resources, to manage the situation. So please do your part. And on the business end, it is challenging as well. But the Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the business network that we have, we're doing our best to provide you the latest information, to get you the most up-to-date information on how your business can be supported at this time, whether it is through intervention at the federal level, the provincial level, or the local level. So in the last few days, you've seen that we've got our MP who have brought in the federal perspective. We've got our mayor came in, the warden, and today we are very fortunate that Rocco Rossi, who is the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, has taken the time to be with us. Many of you know Rocco is a very popular figure, someone that doesn't shy in ensuring that the business concerns and needs are conveyed effectively to the provincial government and the federal government, and someone that has been a very strong advocate for the business community, a leader of Ontario Chamber of Commerce and all the chamber network. We look up to him because he just does a fantastic job of ensuring that the voice of business throughout Ontario is heard, and he's done a fantastic job of really spearheading the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and all of us during this very, very challenging times. So just a few days back, I had the pleasure to actually be with him in person when OCC, Ontario Chamber of Commerce, hosted the Advocacy Day at the Queen's Park. And he and his team did a fantastic job. There were over 27 meetings with key ministers and ministries in Ontario. And the extent to which the OCC went to make those meetings happen and bring up relevant topics and important issues in front of the ministers and their bureaucrats. It was just fantastic. So we have we've had a very good engagement with OCC, and Rocco has become very, very active, not just in the last few days to try and be on top of the issues that we're currently facing and addressing them, but he's been extremely active even before, ensuring that business concerns and needs were identified and relayed to the proper authorities at Ontario. So with that, I would like to welcome Rocco. And those of you who know Rocco, he's been a very successful business executive, an entrepreneur, someone who's not new to the CEO position. He's been CEO of Prostate Cancer Canada, CEO of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. He used to work with Boston Consulting Group, with Torstar, and many more very, very impressive organizations. So someone that has done extremely well, in his professional life, and someone who's very passionate about supporting the business community. So Rocco, thank you for making time. And I know you're very busy with everything. And just before you signed into this, you were on a conference call, and there are many more lined up throughout the day. So we appreciate you making time for this. We've every day there's a lot of developments happening, as you know. There is announcements after announcements. Federal government, provincial government, local government, all are doing their best, and we clearly here at the Chamber of Commerce in Windsor-Essex are very appreciative of all the work and effort that's being put in by the federal government and the provincial government to support the business community. This morning we heard the Prime Minister talk a bit about or provide more details in terms of the 75% wage subsidy, which you have been advocating for quite some time, and the whole chamber network has been advocating. So we're very happy that that has been agreed by the government, and in more details are coming. Some details were shared, and I know that we are expecting more details to be shared with us going forward. But tell us from your perspective, what did you think of what was announced today and what was announced by the province last week, and what's really happening with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the network of Chamber of Commerce? What are some of the issues that you're grappling with currently?
Thank you so much, first off, Rakesh, for the very fulsome introduction, stuff that would have made my dad proud and that my mom would actually believe. Look, we're living in exceptional times, troubling times, for which there is no playbook, to be clear. And so when there is no playbook, as I like to say, the best thing you can have is great teamwork and great players. And we're all doing our part, and all levels of government are doing their part. But first off, a big shout out. Today is International Doctors' Day. And it is appropriate because throughout this crisis, not just today, but into the future, it's Doctors' Day, it's Nurses' Day, it's Health Practitioners' Day, it's Grocery Worker Day, it's Trucker Day, it's all the people continuing to deliver services so we can keep things moving. And I just want to thank everyone for that. Rakesh is very generous in saying, look, we're taking the lead, we're doing these things, Rocco's doing these things. Be clear, no one, not the Premier, not the Prime Minister, not a minister, is going to return my calls because I'm a smart, good-looking guy. They're returning my calls because we at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce represent 135 chambers and boards of trade in every corner of this province, which in turn represent over 60,000 businesses and literally millions of employees. So they return our calls because we are at the heart, you are at the heart of the Ontario economy, the things that bring prosperity to your community, to our province, to our country. So that's what we need to keep doing. We need to keep working as a team, bringing those ideas up, and understand this is an incredibly fluid situation. I mean, last Friday, when the Prime Minister first announced that they were looking at the 75% subsidy as opposed to the 10% subsidy that, my gosh, was only announced less than 2 weeks ago. I mean, we've been traveling at light speed on one level. On the other level, we've been traveling at an incredibly slow speed because I know I've been hearing it from our members. I know that Rakesh has been hearing. People are staring at rent payments, at mortgage payments, at payrolls, and are wondering how they're going to survive. And particularly small and medium-sized businesses, where the old saying, cash is king, has never been more true. Most small and medium-sized businesses only have about 3 weeks of cash cushion at any given time. So it was important in last week's provincial announcement, first, the reduction in hydro rates, taking the off-peak rate and making that the 24/7 rate for the next little while, effectively cutting rates in half, because that's what we need. Is we need to conserve cash flow to keep companies afloat. No one among our membership doesn't want to do their part in helping starve the virus. We're all in. We're 100% in, and we have members in every corner of the province, including there in Windsor. Hiram Walker just announced it's putting out about 20,000 liters of hand sanitizer a week, converting some of their capacity. I know the auto players, including Fiat Chrysler, the auto parts, are converting, are producing ventilators, are donating masks and other PPE. So everyone's doing their part, and people, by and large, are following the health guidance, doing physical distancing, staying at home wherever possible. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we don't starve the economy, because we will get to the end of this health crisis. And when we do, we want as much of the economy still standing so that we can bounce out and rebuild. And that's why we had been pressing from the beginning on using a wage subsidy, a high-level wage subsidy versus just expansion of EI, because this is going to keep workers connected to their workplace, on benefit plans, and for when this turns around, they're there ready to get started again. And quite frankly, it's also the most efficient, fastest way to get money into people's hands through existing payroll processes, as opposed to telling people they need to apply for EI or other benefits at exactly the time when most government bureaucrats are also having to work from home. So you can imagine the system has been overwhelmed. The first week, there were over 1 million EI applications suddenly, a record for that period of time. And the system is just overloaded. So we want to do what's right. We want to do it quickly. And every level is helping. You have municipalities in many areas across the province and across the country that are deferring property taxes. You heard through the province, basically the deferral of 11 provincial taxes, from the employer health tax to various alcohol and fuel taxes that are being delayed in order to allow people to conserve cash. Now, and I've heard this from many of our members, look, deferral is nice, it's helpful in the short term. The longer this goes, and in all likelihood it's months and not weeks, deferral is not going to be enough. It is not enough to simply say to particularly small and medium-sized businesses, we're going to increase your credit facilities. Many of you have already put in your life savings, mortgaged your homes, borrowed money to get your businesses started. And while these debt facilities and credit facilities, including the announced $40,000 no interest loan, which if paid off within that first year, 10,000 of it is going to be forgiven. I think the reality is, and we're certainly making government aware, that much more of this, the longer this goes, the more likely this is going to have to be written off by the government, and the provincial and the federal government are going to have to help the municipal levels of government, because they're not going to be able to take the hit to the loss of property tax revenues. We need to do more. We need to do more on the rental side, both for individuals and for businesses. They're staring at this issue. And yes, for landlords, small and large, who've been communicating constantly with their financial institutions, many of them are coming to arrangements where they can defer the principal as long as they're making the interest payments, which again is fine in the short term. In the long term, we want to make sure that we have a share balancing of the pain, that it's not either just the renters or the landlords or the banks. Everybody's going to have to come together on this. So more details are coming. People are working at light speed. I know it's frustrating, it's frightening. Please keep sending us your best ideas, not just the pain points, but also the incredible successes that are happening. People stepping up and making a difference, what we call the hashtag difference maker campaign, because it's in times like this, you know, my dad always taught me as a young man, it's really easy to be a leader in good times. Any idiot can do that. The real test of leadership, and that's for all of us, is when the hard times come. The hard times are here. It's raining. But together, we're going to get past this. We're going to be stronger, and we need to do that together. And I'm happy to take your questions. Rakesh, over to you.
Thanks, Rocco. So, you know, the government's announcement of 75% wage subsidy, that's great. You know, I think it's very welcome. You know, we've been, you know, on the record on that this is something that the Chamber really appreciates, and it's very much needed.
And it's very important. We got them to extend that to include not-for-profits and charities. Because all of you are playing critical roles in the economy. You're employing people as well. And so that should be part of it. Now, again, devil in the details, that there's a requirement that there's a 30% drop in revenues. It's going to require really people to look into themselves, and for those that need it to use it, and those that don't to not. There's a lot of fear that the system will be abused. But quite frankly, the argument we're making with government is far better to err on the side of overreacting to underreacting. Far better to work it out at the back end if you've got to tax some of this back. But right now is not the time to stop everything and to let perfection get in the way of very good, because people need the money now. The economy needs the money now. Jobs and the healthcare of this province need the money now, because we don't want people having the thought of, do I follow the public health and stay isolated, or do I go out and try to work or find a side hustle or something because I've got to put food on the table? We've got to take that fear away from people during this crisis if we're going to put a stop to the public health danger that we're facing.
Thanks, Rocco, and thanks for bringing up that issue about, you know, 30%, you know, if the business volume has dropped by 30% or more, then the companies qualify. You know, we've already had questions. The media was also interested in knowing what's the process of verifying this. You know, how will one present that information, or what do companies need to provide, you know, so that they can show their eligibility for that? Today, I don't think we have the answers for that. You know, I think tomorrow Minister Mary Ng will be you know, also addressing the country, and she'll be hopefully providing us some more information. But we don't have.
No, the finance minister will also be speaking tomorrow. And really the key here, Rakesh, is they understand there's a triage. I mean, we know province by province, there are a whole bunch of businesses that are essential services that continue to have their doors open and continue to be earning revenues. Clearly, those are not companies that should be accessing this help. Then there are the non-essential, And there are some within the non-essential that can do a great deal of their business online, on the phone, through video conferencing, and so might not have as big a hit. It's really for those non-essential services that simply can't deliver on online and are facing really survival issues at this point that this is most geared to, and that's a lot in the service sector, that's in tourism, that's in a lot of the face-to-face kinds of businesses. It was encouraging that the provincial government, for instance, through this time is allowing restaurants that can still be open for delivery to add alcohol sales to that, as long as there's a food sale, to give them that extra bit of margin that hopefully helps to make the difference between keeping the lights on and turning them off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned about the restaurant, the hospitality industry, that's the one that's taking, a huge hit. It was about 1.7 million applicants for EI, and I'm told that about 700,000 of that are in the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry and so on. So clearly, it's quite a bit of a hit for these small businesses. One of the challenges that, Rocco, that we've come across is that businesses that have operated who are relatively newer, this could be small businesses, those in the restaurant business, online businesses, and these businesses may have been in existence for less than 2 years, which is a challenge because, the program that the government is offering through BDC and the other lending institutions is for those that are 2 years in existence or more. For the ones that are newer entrepreneurs or younger company, that is a huge challenge because now they don't really qualify for the help that has been extended, and also it's a younger company, so the financial stress and the duress on them is even more. Any thoughts on that?
Look, it's a great point. I hear it from many members. You have an entire new legal marijuana industry that's all being affected by those rules. All I can say is, look, last Friday for the 75%, they were only talking about small business. Now that's been expanded. What governments at all levels have indicated is that they're listening. There isn't an easy playbook on this, and so we're going to keep pushing. And also, you've heard both the Prime Minister and the Premier say that this was just round one, and they understand that more things are going to be needed. So we need to keep pressing on that. I'm on a daily call with the feds more often than that with the province. And we keep pushing on these points on the younger businesses, on the rental issue. And ultimately it comes down to we need to get cash out the door now to these businesses because, and this is the piece we've got to remember, this is not an economic crisis like the ones we've had in the past. This is why there isn't a playbook. In the past, when you've had a recession, when you've had a hit to production, you have a whole bunch of people unemployed, you have underutilized factories and other assets. And so governments need to prime the pump. They build huge infrastructure projects, hire a bunch of people, have a multiplier effect into other industries around those projects, and get out of the recession in this Keynesian model. Here, we have a hit to demand, a significant hit to demand, because we're telling people to stay home, right? It's not a matter of striking up some new projects, at least not in this phase of the crisis. In this phase of the crisis, it is getting money into people's hands, so people and businesses, so they stay afloat, so that they're there for the recovery at the end of the process. And that is not a trivial matter, and it's not a cheap matter. Think about it. Ontario alone, before the crisis, had roughly a almost $1 trillion GDP, $900 billion. roughly half of that is salary and wages, right? You're talking about over $10 billion a week. And so think about that when you're doing the math around, okay, let's do 75% up to a limit. It's important because it's not there to pay 75% of senior executive salary. It's to a limit so we keep things going, so we have a more efficient tool than just laying people off and having them collect through EI.
Great. Yep. The other challenge the small businesses have raised is to do with insurance. There are quite a few companies that have gone to their insurance agencies and have asked for support. There is business interruption premiums that have been paid, and many have put that, well, it is for times like this that the business interruption premiums were paid. So that's something that we're hearing a lot from our members. Is this something that you're hearing from others as well in Ontario?
Absolutely, and it is a very live discussion. I think the reality is this is a business interruption, the scale of which has not been seen before and not been modeled before, and so there is a broader discussion required here, and it is an ongoing one that I hope that we see some more details on sooner rather than later.
Okay, and tell us, what are some of the issues that you're seeing in other parts of Ontario? Like we are quite challenged because we've got two major industries, manufacturing and agribusiness, and both are affected in very unique way. Yes, there is slowdown. Yes, some of these companies have closed. The small and medium-sized businesses have definitely either completely shut down or partial shutdown. But our two industries, are in midst of, a phase where there is, it's a busy season for our agribusiness, for our growers. So there's a challenge in terms of, recruiting talent for that, ensuring there's a workforce available for them, and making sure that they remain open. Food processing plants remain open because these are essential service providers. Same with manufacturing, who have also been categorized as essential service providers. Manufacturing companies, some of them here, some good sign we've seen is that, not only have they remained open, but they've also hired in the last couple of weeks, so that those are some good signs. It's an anomaly versus, something that is being seen elsewhere as well. But small and medium-sized businesses who are Main Street companies and, companies which are into hospitality and tourism and all those sectors, they are experiencing a lot of pain. What are some of the things that you're seeing in other parts of Ontario that mirror what we're seeing here? And what are some of the best practices you've seen elsewhere that is helping those companies?
Well, it's a great question. The reality is that, you refer to yourself as a two-industry town. There are many towns in Northern Ontario that are one industry towns, and if the forestry company goes down or the mine goes down, the impact is enormous. We have within Ontario before the crisis very much a tale of two Ontarios, the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and certainly the area around Toronto with the most diversity of economy has seen very significant growth over the last 15, 20 years. Northern Ontario in that same period of time has actually declined by 5% in terms of and this was pre-crisis. So this is putting huge strains. What I'm seeing is incredible support in these communities, because sometimes the advantage of the smaller communities over the big cities is that more family, more community feeling, and you're seeing that in spades. It was, many of those municipalities that stepped up first in terms of deferring property taxes, understanding the pressures that businesses are under. It's also there where you see individuals, going out and doing the shopping for their neighbors who may be seniors and who are at greater risk and really shouldn't be outside of their homes. I love the tool that you in Windsor are providing for, sort of short-term job matching, because as these essential services are requiring more people, whether groceries or some of the delivery services need people, maybe some in the non-essential who are looking for work and bridging themselves in this time, there can be opportunities. Again, we want to make sure that we do this in the safest possible way, and that people are continuing, as the vast majority do, really taking care of their employees, but being on the lookout. And hotlines have been created at the Ministry of Labor for unsafe workplaces. They've also created hotlines around price gouging. I know this is something the Premier feels very, very strongly about, is very emotional about. You heard it in Prime Minister Trudeau's words today around even the 75%, is, look, we're going to be trusting people not to try to game the system. And those who are going to be bad actors in this and abuse things, we're going to come after you after this. But in the meantime, the vast, vast majority of our businesses and our individuals just want to get to the other end of this and are only going to use the programs they absolutely need to make that happen. So we're going to do everything in our power to make sure they get those tools to survive and get ready to thrive in the after crisis period.
Yep. And talking of tools, OCC has a fantastic tool that you have on your website, and we've linked it on our website as well. That's the pandemic response toolkit, where there is business continuity plans, the communication plan. You want to talk a bit about that and how it can be useful to companies?
Yeah, look, people are being inundated with information from all over, and they also have lots of questions. So what we've tried to do at occ.ca and linked at the Windsor-Essex Chamber as well, is to try to bring all of those resources into one place, and we're updating it on a regular basis, including the details as we get them from federal programs, from provincial programs. So check back, it's changing daily, sometimes multiple times in a day. It's also a place where we're asking people to share their thoughts, their ideas, their questions, their pain points, because again, we're only going to solve this together. We're going to solve this by being a great team at a time when there's no playbook. So we got to play well together. And one of the things I can assure everyone, because I've been in conversations at all levels of government across the province and across the country, and there's no Conservative, Liberal, NDP, there's only Team Canada right now, there's Team Ontario right now. We've got to get to the other side of this, and we know we can only do that together.
Thank you for that.
Also, Rakesh, also at that toolkit, we're working with StatsCan and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce to do a survey to try to get even more detailed information, both for now and to help us in the recovery period, where to advocate for specific principles and policy ideas. And I know something that you share with us and have been a big part of this advocacy effort is this is the worst possible time to start introducing new taxes and new conditions. So look, we care about the economy now and the environment. Now is not the time to introduce a new carbon tax when everyone is struggling to survive through a health crisis. Now is not the time, despite the fact that we're delighted that we've got the new NAFTA, the USMCA ratified on all three levels, but we've heard from the auto manufacturers, we've heard from the auto parts manufacturers. Now is not the time to introduce all the new language from within USMCA, CUSMA. Let's hold off a little bit. Let's let people catch their breath and get their feet through this. And we'll be continuing to advocate along with you, Rakesh, and others across the province and country that now's the time to stick to our knitting, not add things new that aren't about putting cash into people's pockets to survive this difficult time.
Thank you, Rocco. We just want to reiterate what you just said, that in terms of, new taxes, not the time. And we here locally have been talking about the same thing. Carbon tax, not the time for it now. The government has been asked about this in the last few days, and the response that the Prime Minister has offered is that I think most likely it's going to go forward. I think the Chamber network and us here locally definitely are sending a very strong message that this is not the time for any new taxes. On one end, we are either deferring taxes or at this point of time, thinking of reducing some taxes or increasing exemption. It won't really work in favor of businesses, to add any more taxes. So please take this message from us here locally, as well as you have conversations with the others in the federal government.
And we also got confirmation from the provincial government, and it was stated in the finance minister's economic update that they're not going to do the review of the property tax and the new MPAC rate. So again, now is not the time to introduce anything new. That's going to be put on hold until we're the other side of this health crisis.
Yeah. Robert, just want to highlight the document that you referred to, which is in the pandemic response toolkit, and also the communication plan that is out there and the business continuity plan. For those that are online, please go to our website. The document from OCC is linked there. There's some very useful information and tool that you can leverage to really help you in this situation. It tells you how you can plan for, how do you go about communicating? How do you go about ensuring that your supply chain remains intact, or you can, manage your supply chain? How do you manage your human resources? How do you keep records intact? How do you apply for different programs? There's some very valuable information in the toolkit. So it is being made available for you, and the information is there so that you don't have to, at this point of time, worry about, what else you need to do, to keep your operations going. This is vital information. This is very useful information. So please leverage that. It's on the Chamber's website as well.
I've been scanning through some of the questions that have been coming in, Rakesh. There are questions around clarification with respect to essential versus non-essential.
Yep.
The key there, again, there is a list on the ontario.ca on the government website. If there's any confusion, it's best to reach out to the Ministry of Labor to make sure so that you're not offside. I also, hear the questions, see the questions around you're a new business, you don't meet certain qualifications of the loans, of the different programs. We're continuing to work hard to try to get more. We've been assured by the Prime Minister and by the Premier this was the first installment. We understand that it has to happen fast if it's going to happen. Otherwise, people are simply going to lock the door and throw away the key. We understand that intimately and are continuing to press each and every day. In the meantime, we've tried to get as many things deferred to buy additional time as the governments and all of us are working out the solutions to move forward. As we've said many times, we are literally building the plane while trying to fly it. We need your input to make it work.
Right, Rocco, and I'm looking at some of the questions. There is one that talks about that, the 40,000 is a good start, but it's not a lot of money, especially if you want, to recover from, lost business and losses and disruption in supply chain, inventory losses and all of that, right? So, going forward, what can be done in addition to, the 40,000 that the government has offered? There should be something that we should be looking at working with the government so that in the future, the assistance continues beyond the 40,000 access to capital that has been announced.
For sure, and there have already been announcements with respect to additional credit through BDC and others, but that's still, again, not necessarily applicable in all cases, not necessarily enough. Again, the longer this goes, the more all of these numbers have to be revisited, because it won't be enough for very, very many businesses.
Yeah, and it's doesn't seem like today that things will turn and it'll get better. We're still in the thick of things, but it will. We will definitely come out of this, and as you rightly pointed right in the beginning, that we will get to the end of this, and we'll be back on our feet, and the economy will get back on its feet, and business owners will get their business back. Hopefully, we won't lose a lot of businesses through the support that the government is offering. But the road to recovery is going to be long, and it's not going to be easy. What are some of your thoughts in terms of what companies can do so that they can recover from this faster? What are some of your suggestions for those small businesses?
Well, first off, if at all possible, hang on to your employees. I hope that the 75% applies to you. And quite clearly what the Prime Minister has said in this is that if you can do the top up from the 75 to the 100, great. If not, at least the 75% is there, and it's better than EI in almost all cases. So that's to try to keep people connected to the workplace so that you can restart up at the end of this. There's also a number of services, a number of things that the OCC, we recently announced a partnership with a very interesting company called Barter Pay that is trying to facilitate, and I know that Windsor will be involved, so you can work with your local chamber on this, where you use excess inventory, excess time as we come to the recovery, and maybe we're short on cash. This system, and it's CRA approved because everything has to be documented and provided a value and so on. But it is a way of conserving cash and using underutilized assets to trade for things that you would otherwise have to pay cash for. We want to facilitate that across our members across the province. So look into our barter pay announcement. We'll be doing lots more in the area of skills development. Before this crisis hit, and I know Rakesh has been a key voice and champion in this, the reality is that the number one issue before the crisis that companies were telling us about in every corner of this province is the skills gap, is making sure that we're working with our schools, our colleges, our universities, our trade unions, and our workforces, so that we are actually training for the jobs that are there today and in the future, and showing both our young people and those who have to reskill and retrain as business keeps evolving, that we in Ontario have the best systems to do that. We're not there yet, but that's going to be a big focus. Obviously, infrastructure is going to be an enormous focus as part of the recovery. Leveraging the trade deal is going to be another enormous focus, not just with the US. Canada has signed more free trade agreements than any other country in the OECD. We have access to more markets in the world than anyone else. We've not been particularly good at leveraging those yet because we've had this incredible relationship with the United States. And, Windsor knows that better than anyone else in Canada in terms of agreements. Yeah, in terms of dealing with that, both in terms of goods, services, and people. Going both ways. So really important. There's that, that bridge that's being built that is so hugely important and a big part of the recovery and the next phase of where we go from here. And we're going to be there working with you, working with our local chambers to take advantage of those opportunities.
Thanks, Rocco. And very important at this time, to explore what are the ways in which we can, get our businesses to become more successful, whether it's through online presence. Many of our companies didn't have a good online presence, and the chamber is working with our partners, Bell Media, to offer a service where companies can actually go and do an assessment of, how's their online presence, and what improvements can be done further. This is a good time to look into that, because a lot of businesses can be online and can offer the products and services online who have not yet completely migrated, if not completely, have not yet, explored that fully. So this is a time to look into that. Also a good time for companies to look into how productive they have and whether they use technology adequately or not. Another program that the Chamber of Commerce here is offering is for manufacturers to, it's called the Productivity Technology Assessment Program. So that is another one that companies should look into. As we go forward, it will become even more important to look into whether we are using our resources well, whether we have an online presence, whether the technology that we've deployed is adequate, whether we need to do anything more in terms of getting the most out of the investment, whether it's assets or human resources that we've deployed. So I think all of these things will become important as we move forward, because recovery is going to be long, but we need to make sure that we are looking at every means, every possible way to ensure that we are getting better in terms of making progress, in terms of using technology, in terms of becoming more efficient in operations.
Absolutely. Look at what we're doing today. Look what many businesses are doing in terms of having employees work from home at a scale that we've never done before. Now we see some of the unintended consequences. The bandwidth, the infrastructure is not there if everyone is suddenly working from home. But it is causing lots of companies that I'm talking to are saying, you know what, we were thinking of actually expanding the size of our office, but now we're thinking with the productivity that we're having in some industries, this isn't for everyone for sure. Look, we think we could have a third of our employees doing 2 days a week from home, and that's going to allow us to hotel desk space, office space, and be able to be more efficient when we come out of this, because we've learned how to use tools like Zoom. We're all Zoomers now, or GoToMeeting, and so use this opportunity to learn everything possible, because sadly, the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention, is proving itself again and again.
True, very true. And Rocco, I see that you've left information for our guests here today. So if you're looking to complete the record of employment, the ROEs, the government has posted some codes, and this will be on the OCC website, and we'll make sure that we link it on our website as well. So thank you, Rocco, for sharing a lot of information here and for doing what you're doing every day. You've been a great champion for the business community. You're a great leader in Ontario, and we in the Windsor-Essex Chamber of Commerce are delighted to work with you and join your efforts, to bring help and support to our business community. Things are moving fast, and I know you're keeping up to date in terms of developments and sharing with us, so we appreciate that. As things move forward, as we get more information, we'll continue to share that, and we'll continue to update our website. Please go on the Windsor-Essex Chamber of Commerce website, which the link has been posted on the chat panel. You can get updates. You can also get information on the resources that are currently available here. We will continue with our webinar series, and tomorrow, as Marina pointed out, we're bringing in experts. We have an accounting firm and we have a law firm that can answer some of your questions related to whether you can lay off people, you cannot lay off people, what are some of the rules, labor laws governing that, and how do you take care of the business, the bottom line, and so on. So same time tomorrow at 2:30, you can sign up. The information is on our website, and again, we are limiting it to only 100 people. So make sure that you sign up and also provide the information to the others. Rocco, thank you again for making time and appreciate all
My thanks to you for what you do every day and for this opportunity, and to everyone out there, stay safe, take care of one another. We're going to get to the other side of this. We do have to do physical distancing, but not social distancing. Let's keep embracing people virtually. We will succeed together.
Well said, Rocco. You take care and stay healthy as well. Talk to you soon. Thank you everyone for joining in. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.